The CNBC app. Global market news in one place. Customizable sections and personalized alerts. Stocks tracking, interactive charts and market insights all in your hands. Stay connected. Stay informed. Download the CNBC app today.
Hello and welcome to Squawk Box Europe. I'm Karen Cho with Juliana Tattelbaum. These are your headlines. The world's most powerful man versus the world's richest. Tesla shares tumble amid a Trump-Musk bust-up, with the two reportedly set to try and broker peace over the phone later today. Trump talks trade with Chinese leader Xi Jinping, with the US president saying the relationship is in very good shape.
And Donald Trump and German Chancellor Friedrich Merz present a cordial front during Oval Office talks, but Trump strikes a downbeat tone on the prospect of any near-term ceasefire in Ukraine.
Sometimes you see two young children fighting like crazy. They hate each other and they're fighting in a park. And you try and pull them apart. They don't want to be pulled. Sometimes you're better off letting them fight for a while and then pulling them apart.
Happy Friday, everyone. I've done a little Friday summary for you. It's payrolls day today, and we've got Tesla shares tanking with an almighty bust up between Elon Musk and his former best friend. We've got a lot at stake here. Musk government contracts, astronauts in space, big beautiful bill. Trump, though, does he have a new friend, a new chum? Relations now improving seemingly with China, with President Xi Jinping. And, of course, we got a big IPO away, something for the private markets to hang their hat on. And on that note, welcome back from Super Return.
Oh, thank you. What a day to come back. I mean, I couldn't believe my eyes looking at the exchanges, the barbs thrown back and forth between Donald Trump and Elon Musk. And we're going to go through all of the latest for you. But just wow, what at lightning speed things seem to have unraveled between the two. My favorite comment that I've seen so far came from Dan Ives over at Wedbush. She said, it's just another Twilight Zone moment in the Trump-Musk relationship.
Well, we knew it was going to be big when it finally broke down, and certainly it has been enormous overnight in terms of the conversation. And but there's going to be more. Will we see any warming of the relationship again? Can they silence this, or is it just going to escalate from here? Well, President Trump and former close ally Tesla CEO Elon Musk have attacked each other in a flurry of online posts as tensions between the two exploded into the open. The row began on Wednesday as Musk attacked the Trump-backed Republican budget bill, describing it as a disgusting abomination and going on to call on senators to kill the bill. Trump hit out at Musk in response, saying the billionaire was upset about decisions to cut EV tax credits.
I'm very disappointed because Elon knew the inner workings of this bill better than almost anybody sitting here, better than you people. He knew everything about it. He had no problem with it. All of a sudden he had a problem, and he only developed the problem when he found out that we're going to have to cut the EV mandate, because that's billions and billions of dollars.
Musk denied that claim, saying he wanted the president to ditch the, quote, mountain of disgusting pork in the bill. He also claimed Trump would have lost the election and Democrats would have taken control of the House without his support. In a separate post, he claimed that the president was in the Epstein files. Musk offered no evidence, and Trump and others have denied any involvement in Epstein's criminal behavior. Documents relating to the case have been released by the administration. Musk also took aim at Trump's tariff policies, saying they will cause a recession. And in response to a post calling for the president's impeachment to be replaced by J.D. Vance, Musk replied, yes. President Trump fired back, saying he asked Musk to leave the White House because he was, quote, wearing thin, and accusing him of going crazy. Trump then took aim at contracts Musk companies have with the US government, saying terminating them would be the easiest way to save money in the budget.
Tesla posted the biggest loss of market cap in its history, losing its status as a trillion-dollar company, now on pace for its worst week since 2022. White House aides have reportedly scheduled a call between Trump and Musk for today in a bid to broker peace between the two. That's according to Politico, which says aides had encouraged Trump to temper his criticism of Musk and focus on the passage of the budget proposal. Billionaire investor Bill Ackman also attempted to intervene on X, saying he supports both men and that they should make peace, with Musk replying, "You're not wrong. Well, on that note, let's take a look at the latest trade in Tesla. We've got a pre-market, or this is the Frankfurt listing rather. We're seeing a bounce back in the Tesla share price this morning, perhaps because there are signals that we could see a de-escalation here. And we'll talk through all of this in just a moment. But let me just wrap up how we got here. This breakdown comes nearly a year after the Tesla CEO publicly endorsed Trump for the first time. Musk joined Trump on the campaign trail, and in January, after the president was sworn in, was tasked with leading the Department of Government Efficiency, what's come to be known as DOGE. But cracks in the relationship began to show early on. Musk had a public fallout with White House trade advisor Peter Navarro, calling him, quote, dumber than a sack of bricks. And in May, Musk announced he will be stepping back from his duties in the U.S. administration to focus more on his businesses. Speaker Mike Johnson has also faced Musk's ire. He'll be joining CNBC later today at 1:10 p.m. London time. And for more on the wider reaction to the very public feud, check out CNBC.com.
Well, so much to pick our way through here. First up, Elon branding Trump ungrateful. Was he? Well, maybe. If you think about the money that Musk poured into the campaign, $250 million, a huge amount to try and bankroll the president with. I mean, that is an enormous amount of money. And in terms of what difference it made, well, Trump said he would have won Pennsylvania anyway. So I think a lot of the political commentators will long debate what role Musk played and whether he actually helped carry the president to victory. The other points here around Musk, effectively working in DOGE, he put himself out there, and you were just running through Tesla and the share price performance here. Musk put himself out there. We saw the fallout on DOGE, the government efficiency efforts. We saw it in terms of his attachment to MAGA, to right-wing politics elsewhere. Incredibly negative for Tesla. What's at stake here now? The MAGA movement, is it off the grid now for the MAGA movement in terms of owning Teslas as well? Does anybody else come in on a sympathy vote? Does any of this change for Tesla now? In terms of the rest of the contracts, what about those when it comes to SpaceX and other government contracts?
Well, there's so much at stake here, I think, for both sides. And one question I think many have been asking over the last few hours is what took so long for this fallout when you've got two huge personalities, huge egos on both sides here. And I think your first point about Elon Musk's role in funding the Republican Party, funding President Trump on the campaign trail is one of the key things here. That when it comes to Donald Trump and what's kept him in check, Elon Musk has been such a huge donor to the Republican Party. He's also got over 200 million followers on X. President Trump, he's got just over 100 million. So Elon Musk has huge reach and huge influence here. And then on Musk's side, what's kept him in check until now, he's got a real interest in favorable policy coming out of the White House, not only around EVs, but more importantly, I think, on autonomous driving. But all of that's been thrown out the window in the last 12 hours. It got the best of them, their egos here, but it looks like we're already seeing this acknowledgement that, as the rest is politics put it in a podcast that I listened to just last night, we've got mutual assured destruction here if they don't de-escalate.
The problem for me with Elon Musk is that he's come out of this looking as though he's very self-serving, because Trump was taking aim at the Elon Musk pushback, saying, look, it's about those EV tax credits, about the EV subsidies as well. Effectively that which is not helping bankroll the EV build out. So there's one element there. The other point too is around around NASA, and there was this frustration from Musk about withdrawal the nomination of Jared Isaacman. This is a Musk ally to run NASA, and Musk obviously wants someone in NASA if he's going to be doing these very close associations and helping take astronauts to space. He's been very involved in that. And of course, there are other government contracts when it comes to space as well. This is a big frontier for him. So I don't think Musk has come out looking very rosy at this point. The question is whether he can change that around with the communication directly to his followers on X and, of course, the longtime tech bros in Silicon Valley. And the big point, what does Silicon Valley do? Do they line up behind Trump, who is effectively writing big checks and opening doors for the build-out of AI infrastructure in the United States? Or do they side with Musk, who's been at the forefront of innovation over the years and, of course, is very, very wealthy?
You raise a good point, I think, thinking about the what's going on in space here and how it factors in. I mean, President Trump threatening to pull these contracts with Tesla's companies, but does he really want to completely disrupt NASA's operations? There's also a huge military impact here if he were to sever ties between the government and Starlink, the government and SpaceX. I think the other thing to throw into the equation here is Elon Musk's tweet that he's considering starting a third party here, that we could have a third political party. I mean, Elon Musk with his 200 million plus X followers. He's got huge influence here. And that's something that certainly feeds into, will feed into President Trump's impetus to try to de-escalate. What would that mean if Elon Musk comes out with an alternative to MAGA?
Well, Mark Cuban, the billionaire businessman, did also throw some support behind this idea. He had flirted with running for presidency as well. So elements of the establishment that are interested in some fraying of politics here. But even if he doesn't establish his own party, could he cause some ill feeling in the Republicans? And don't forget, since the inauguration day, Trump was effectively a king of the party, and everybody's been lining up behind him, even with the tariffs that have caused enormous economic uncertainty. You've seen very few people break ranks. Now that Elon Musk has, and he's talking about some sort of change in the political landscape, could you see more discontent bubble to the surface from more powerful constituents? And I think that would be fascinating, given that the tariffs are yet to be solved. And yesterday was meant to be about the German Chancellor Merz. It was meant to be a conversation for him to go and talk to the president about making progress on some sort of European trade agreement. Those trade agreements are still very much in doubt. And of course, that means economic uncertainty for a lot of the other lobbyists beyond Elon Musk, who also helped bankroll the Republicans to Congress and to the White House.
It's an important point about whether Elon Musk speaking out against President Trump will embolden more. We've already seen it happening within the Republican Party, more feeling confident speaking out against President Trump. I think one last comment here, when you look at how hard Elon Musk went at President Trump in the last 24 hours to bring up what he calls as the ultimate bombshell, Elon Musk claiming that President Trump is in those Epstein files. I mean, we've seen President Trump hit back at things like this before with lawsuits. I think it'll be really interesting to see how President Trump addresses this moving forward, and whether there is anything in Elon Musk's claim there, because that could be a huge deal if that story progresses.
Mudslinging hasn't stuck to the president much before, so let's see whether this makes any difference and what exactly Musk has and whether he can back it up as well. Well, US President Donald Trump says trade relations with China are, quote, in very good shape following a more than 1 hour call with China's Xi Jinping. Trump said the pair had addressed trade issues, including China's restrictions on rare earth exports, which have disrupted global supply chains. The two leaders also invited each other to their respective countries. Trump told reporters the two sides agreed to continue talks on prospective deals.
We had a very good talk, and we've straightened out any complexity. It's very complex stuff, and we straightened it out. The agreement was we're going to have Scott and Howard and Jameson will be going and meeting with their top people and continue it forward. But no, I think we have everything. I think we're in very good shape with China and the trade deal. We have a deal with China, as you know, but we were straightening out some of the points, having to do mostly with rare earth, magnets, and some other things.
Well, let's take a look at how markets are reacting to all those, the key stories of the morning. You've got in Asia, the Nikkei 225 up about 0.3%. Not a huge amount of movement in the Shanghai Composite over in mainland China. So investors not taking a huge amount away from President Trump's characterization of that call with President Xi. You've got the Hang Seng down about 0.4% over in Hong Kong. Take note, the South Korean markets are closed today. Stateside, let's take a look at U.S. futures and what's in store for the Wall Street Open on this Friday morning. Well, we're looking at a decent bounce at the start of trade. The Dow Jones looking at about 140 points, the Nasdaq about 70 points or so, and the S&P 500 also looking at a decent start to trade this morning. As for European markets, let's take a look. Yesterday we saw the Stoxx 600 gain about 16 basis points. That was a third positive session in a row for the European benchmark. Now this morning we're looking at a modest pullback at the open. Nothing major though at this point in terms of the magnitude of the move lower. German exports fell almost twice as much as expected in April, falling by 1.7%. Meanwhile, imports rose nearly 4% against expectations for a half-point gain. Coming up on the show, Germany's Friedrich Merz dodges an Oval Office showdown with Donald Trump, but clear differences between the two remain. We'll discuss. Plus, Switzerland is expected to impose strict new capital rules on its lenders with potentially significant ramifications for UBS. And Euronext CEO Stefan Bujna will join us around the desk as Europe's exchanges launch a charm offensive to convince companies to keep their listings local. That exclusive conversation is coming up at 7:30 London time.
German Chancellor Friedrich Merz met US President Donald Trump for the first time Thursday, with the pair presenting a cordial front while discussing Ukraine war and the trade tariffs. Merz avoided the kind of confrontations other leaders have faced in the Oval Office, but clear differences between him and Trump do remain. Let's get out to Annette for more. Annette, I think Merz should be thanking his lucky stars that Trump had other things going on yesterday, namely Elon Musk, but it did feel as though Merz had to be a man of few words. He could barely get a word in the press conference.
Yes, exactly. I think there are mainly three lessons drawn from that encounter between President Trump and Friedrich Merz is that the sort of overall atmosphere was rather reserved. It wasn't full of enthusiasm or optimism, but both men actually did respect each other, and that's what Trump was saying as well too. He was calling Friedrich Merz a difficult man and then explaining that this is actually meant in a positive way because to be easy, it's nothing what he actually judges as desirable. So lesson one, it's actually paying off to be a little bit reserved. Friedrich Merz gave away a lot of the speaking time to Donald Trump, who actually dominated the time, or the speech time, by roughly 90%. The second lesson is that Germany is well back to be a positive country for Donald Trump in Europe, and that is because we have a massive increase in military spending. So in a way, he got what he wanted, and he was praising Germany for that. But the third lesson is actually a negative one. The existing difficulties do exist further. We need to talk about trade here. Donald Trump was promising that there will be a beautiful trade deal at some point in time between the US and Europe, but as well the difference on the Ukraine war did still factor as well into that meeting, with Donald Trump comparing Russia and Ukraine to kids who actually are fighting, so with none of them being responsible or both of them being responsible for the situation. But Friedrich Merz actually corrected him in that respect and said, no, Russia is the aggressor and Ukraine is the victim. So I guess at least here in Germany, that meeting between the two men is characterized as being a success for Friedrich Merz. He managed to get through that Oval Office situation without any major disruption and without many major difficulties. And it remains to be seen whether the relations between the two countries are actually now on a better footing, because the chemistry between the two men actually seems to work much better than before with Olaf Scholz.
Annette, thank you very much for that. And Julian, I know that he prepared for the meeting. He was discussing with other world leaders how to be, on the front foot. But apparently Angela Merkel back in the day had also prepared for the visit. This is thanks to The Guardian, saying she had read a 1980s interview from Playboy magazine and also watched episodes of The Apprentice.
Wow,
to try and get ready for the
amazing prep work. It was pretty savvy of her.
Merz slightly different, going just to speak to other world leaders about how to be ready for this. Meantime, the CEO of Mercedes-Benz Group has proposed a potential trade agreement in which US car exports could enter Europe duty-free in exchange for waivers on the same number of European vehicles going the other way. Speaking to German magazine Spiegel, Ola Kalenia said he had put suggestions forward for talks between the two sides and that such a deal could serve as the basis for other industries. The EU is reportedly set to revamp its trade negotiation team for talks with the US. That's according to Reuters. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen plans to add close aides to handle political issues following US complaints. Let's get to Jackson Janes, who is Senior Resident Fellow German Marshall Fund of the United States. Thank you so much for joining us, Jackson. Let's just get into what has happened overnight. Friedrich Merz trying to make progress on the relationship with Trump and trying to also move the needle in terms of how he views European partners. The defence side, this was a win for Germany, wasn't it? The fact that Germany has committed to spend 5% of GDP on defence spending. The president liked that. He can work with that when it comes to Germany. What did you make of the negotiations?
Yeah, I think he did actually a good thing for himself there in terms of saying that the Germans have met, a requirement that they have set upon themselves. Trump was probably taking ownership of that by saying, I made that possible by pressing you on this issue. But he was able to come back and say, we're meeting this and we're going to do more. And I think that's important. for Friedrich Merz as well as Trump.
What are the stumbling blocks here, though? Because not everybody is talking from the same page. There's still massive issues that the president has with Europe and how it's treated the United States when it comes to trade, even if defense is the common element here.
Yeah, I mean, that's an ongoing story that actually goes back decades. And I think that to some extent, this is going to be a problem that's going to continue to fester. Obviously, he recognized, Trump, that this is an issue that goes with the negotiations with Brussels, not necessarily with only Berlin. But I think he was looking at Trump as at Merz to see whether or not he can expedite the process of trying to reach agreement on that. And he did extend a handshake by saying, you're my friend now. And we'll see how that works out, because from one day to another, you never know about Trump.
Jackson, let's take a step back and look at the historical relationship between the U.S. and Germany. How does Germany's historical relationship with the U.S., in particular post-World War II, and the role that the Americans played in reunifying Germany, play into the German psyche here, and how how Germany's approach with Washington now is shaped by the relationship of the past?
Yeah, it's interesting because, Trump was listening to Merz say something about the fact that today is June 6th and how much that meant to the Germans in terms of being liberated from the Nazi control. And since then, they have been remaining thankful for that. In that respect, I think that one of the things about the German-American relationship is now burdened by the fact that there are a lot of people in Germany who don't really see the U.S. as it, in their view, used to be in terms of the kind of relationship that Germany and the United States have had all of these 80 years since that war. And my sense is that, this is an important point for Germans to make. He made it in another way by showing Trump the birth certificate of his grandfather as making the point you have a relationship with Germany in your own family. So I think that there's a kind of a change going on generationally, as well as in terms of history, trying to continue to be a fundamental foundation of German-American relations, going back all of these decades, but trying to continue to sustain it is really important right now.
It's really interesting you talk about, this generational shift and what the Germans now, want to get out of their relationship with the U.S. How does China factor in here? Because in modern times, Germany has developed really strong linkages with China, and China and the U.S. obviously now caught up in this this major trade brawl. How does that complicate the relationship that Germany has with the U.S.?
Very much so. In other words, the importance of China as a source of exports, targets, and to some extent an enormous presence in Germany as well, is going to be a factor that is going to be difficult to find common ground on, not only with the United States. It's going to have to be also done within the European framework. But it seems to me that that's going to be a part of the shift in terms of where burden sharing and notions of the way that Germany and the United States can function, about identifying common denominators. And one of the common denominators is the challenge from China. There's no question about that on either side. The question is, how are they going to come up with the differences in terms of security, economics, and relationship with the second most important power now on the globe?
Jackson, it was interesting yesterday to hear the president also try to draw some commonality around immigration policy. Just in recent days, of course, the president enacting travel restrictions on 19 countries. And he's also pointing to the challenge that Germany has after welcoming about 1 million refugees into the country back in 2015, 2016, which has reshaped German politics. Do you think there is any commonality on this immigration challenge?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that was what they probably wound up talking about. How do we have a situation where we can control borders? That's a common challenge. And I think that to some extent, that's going to be an opportunity to talk about what they're doing on both sides of the Atlantic, even though they come up with different prescriptions. But it's true that there's going to be a challenge there for both Merz and for Trump to deal with this issue. And I hope that that's possibly a way for them to talk about how different ways of dealing with that can be exchanged between the two of them.
Jackson, is the challenge subtly different? Because every time we talk to German business, they are talking about a skill shortage. I mean, some stores can't keep the lights on, the doors open because they do not have enough workers. Very different situation versus the United States, where, well, we've had very strong labour markets in recent years. Not exactly the same situation where they're closing down facilities because they can't get workers. It's a slightly different challenge, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that basically the experience of the last 10 years since Merkel in 2016 left the doors open for many people coming in from Syria and elsewhere have also had a positive impact in the market, in the labor market, because many of those people have adapted and are now part of the labor force in Germany. The question is going to be how they're going to shape illegal immigration or illegal asylum seekers, or people who are trying to figure out how they can find access to Germany in a legal sense. And I think that to some extent, that's a similar problem in both countries. Germany needs demographically immigrants to deal with the kind of things that they're going to be having in the coming decades. And in that respect, I think it is a different situation, but it's similar in terms of the political situation in both countries. As you know, the AfD is a very big force now in Germany, and that's one of the issues that they focus on.